Okay, I believe we're ready to roll, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And I see that everybody's present, so I don't think we need to physically call the roll. The first action would be the approval of minutes, which were emailed to everybody. Need a motion, a second, or any improvements?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have approved the minutes. We're going to move right into resolution 1235, providing for an increase in wastewater rates to be reflected on customer bills beginning April 2011.
Commissioners, as you will recall, you approved this on first reading last month after a comprehensive report from Mark Walker. I've asked Mark to summarize that for you today and before your consideration on second reading.
Yes, Commissioners, prior to your consideration of the rate resolution on second reading, I just want to go over some of the key points of the proposed wastewater rate action. As you know, we talked about quite a bit in the last couple of months. The proposed rate increase is needed to fund the significant cost requirements of the federal consent decree. At last month's board meeting, we shared with you that we anticipate KUB will spend up to $650 million in capital alone to comply with the requirements of the CD. So this proposed rate increase will provide an additional $7 million in annual revenue to help fund those cost requirements. With respect to impact on customers, the average residential wastewater customer will see an increase of $4.44 on their monthly bill. Currently, that monthly bill is $37.86. It will go to $42.30. And that is based upon average usage of 5 CCF or 500 cubic feet. The proposed rate increase is actually lower than it otherwise would have been without the wastewater division's share of $40 million in O&M savings that KUB is in the process of realizing, will continue to realize over the next several years. And those savings also enabled us to defer this wastewater rate increase 6 months. You may recall we originally planned for it to go into effect this past October, and now it will be going into effect or appearing on customer bills in April of 2011. And the rate action also includes some very modest modifications to our general wastewater rate structure that will enable our wastewater rate structures to be consistent with our water rate structure and also with the rate schedules of other local wastewater providers. And again, I believe I mentioned, but if adopted today on second reading, it will be reflected on customer bills beginning in April of 2011. And real quickly, this chart just simply reflects the impact on residential customer bills. And ultimately, obviously, the impact on an individual customer's bill will be based upon their actual usage for a given month. But based upon our historical data, it indicates that approximately 2/3 of our residential customers would see an increase of $4.44 or less on their monthly bill. And 25% would see an increase of approximately $2.50 or less on their monthly bill. And that is it. Just a high-level summary of the proposed rate action. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I know we've talked a lot about the EPA, and this is a very complicated, the consent decree is a very complicated situation, to say the least. Is it safe to say, and we've heard recently maybe Chattanooga is going to be in the same situation, is it safe to say that cities or utility districts of our size and bigger, almost 100% are going to be under some sort of decree, if you will, or else they're spending a lot of money to fix their system without it? Is that something?
I'll defer to Bill, but I would say I think that is probably a safe bet.
During our negotiations at one point, I don't remember if it was the EPA or the DOJ that made the statement, but the statement was made that their goal was to have every municipality, every utility under a consent decree. That would be their definition of success, was when everyone reached that point. Everyone had a CD.
And the smaller, if they're just not a smaller utility district just doesn't affect enough people, or not enough problems, or it's just on the radar screen, so to speak.
EPA's approach is just where can we go to get the biggest bang for the buck, where are the biggest dischargers, where are the biggest utilities, and work their way through those and get smaller as they go.
As far as communicating the customers, have we already started putting things in, I know the deal envelopes, a lot of times it goes out that this is gonna happen. If you don't read the paper, if you don't see it on the TV, how would those customers know that this is coming?
We will be communicating with our customers. I believe we've already been giving our larger commercial industrial customers a heads up through our key accounts group, but we will have communications, additional communications with our other customer base. Yes.
And in that communication, are we talking about savings, how they can
Sure.
actually do conserve
We always
water?
include a conservation message, that steps they can take to reduce all of their portions of the utilities.
Other questions or comments?
Move for approval.
We have a second. Motion and second. Any comments from the public on this resolution? Okay, Mr. Cole, I believe we need a roll call vote.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Canal.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Resolution 1235 is passed on second reading.
Okay, resolution 1236, authorizing the execution of an agreement with Clinton Utilities Board for the exchange of electric distribution facilities and service rights in the Strader Road and Chestnut Ridge Road areas.
The Clinton Utilities service territory is contiguous to the KUB service territory, and they approached us with the possibility of exchanging some facilities as well as service rights. We looked at it and believe it's mutually beneficial, so we are in agreement with that, and Julie will summarize it for you today.
Commissioners, today we're going to look at Resolution 1236, and the purpose of this mainly is at the request of Clinton Utilities Board. They contacted us and asked to help them improve their electric service reliability. Currently on Chestnut Ridge Road, they have two lines that come from different directions, and there's a gap in the middle. KUB has a line that comes up through that gap and has several customers at the end of it. So Clinton Utilities Board has asked if they can take responsibility for those customers and connect the line between those 2 points to improve their reliability. This gives an overview of where these customers are located. This is the Chestnut Ridge Road area, and those are the KUB customers that would be going to Clinton Utilities. And this area is Strader Road, and those are the customers that are currently Clinton Utilities customers that would become KUB customers. One thing you'll note is that the Clinton Utilities Board is giving up 13 customers and we're giving up 8. The reason for the difference is overall the electric load is exactly the same, but there is one commercial customer on Chestnut Ridge Road, which is the Verizon wireless tower, and the load of that particular customer is equivalent to several residential customers, so the load swap is almost exactly the same. The way this would happen, if approved, is the poles and wires would stay virtually the same, but each utility would go in and change out the meters and transformers to their own utility. And the residential rates are roughly equivalent, with Clinton Utilities being slightly higher. They recently had a rate increase in November. But the residential bills would vary somewhere between $5 to $10 a month. So Resolution 1236, if approved, would it approve the exchange of distribution facilities and the service rights between Clinton Utilities Board and KUB, and authorize execution of any documents to make this change possible. Are there any questions?
Will we share liability? For some reason, if we're gonna fill the gap, right, the KUB portion, we will.
No, that would be Clinton.
Clinton, okay.
They'll fill in that gap between their two wires and then assume responsibility for those
So
customers.
that'll be responsible, okay.
Mhm.
Do they have to approve this, their board or their?
Yes, they already have.
They already have. Other questions?
Are they getting trimmed properly or?
I'm not sure about that.
I move that we approve Resolution 1236.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this resolution? Okay, Mr. Cole, roll call please.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Canal.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson? Commissioner Simmons?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Resolution 1236 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to the President's report. Member Roach.
Yes, Commissioners, you may recall in October you approved the sale of bonds in the electric, wastewater, and gas divisions. And we have been to market, and Mark's going to give you an update on the results of that.
Commissioners, you may recall, we talked a little bit about this at last month's board meeting. Our originally planned sale date for the electric, gas, and wastewater bonds was on November 16th. And on November 16th, that day started a period of several days in which there was basically a glut of municipal bonds coming to market, primarily led by the state of California that was trying to sell about $8 billion in just a matter of days. So you really had a situation where there was a large supply of municipal bonds and more supply than there was demand for the bonds. That caused a little unsettling in the marketplace for several days, and it did impact KUB's planned sales in various ways. For the electric and gas bonds, it impacted the number of bids that we typically receive on the bonds, but we were able to successfully sell them both, and we sold them both at very attractive rates, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. You will recall, however, that we did not receive any bids for our wastewater bonds on that particular day. So after November 16th, we consulted with our financial advisor, made some slight modifications to the structure of the wastewater bonds, and went back to market on November the 30th. And pleased to report that we had a successful sale that day and received a number of bids, and we received actually a very, very good rate on the wastewater bonds, so we were pleased with that. We actually closed on all the bond sales last week and received the proceeds in. So today I just wanted to provide you a brief overview of each of the respective bond sales. For electric, you'll recall we sold $30 million in revenue bonds. We actually only received one bid on that day on November 16th, and that was from Prager, Seeley and Company, but it was a very good bid at 3.47%. The bonds were sold or bid and then sold as Build America bonds. So the 3.47% does reflect that 35% interest payment rebate that we will get from the federal government over the life of the bonds. This is our net interest cost. And again, that's a very good rate. The bonds will mature over a period of 20 years, starting in 2011, going through 2030. And both Standard & Poor's and Moody's affirmed existing ratings for the electric division on this bond issue, which is very high ratings at AA+ and AA2 from Moody's. And just share with you the total debt profile of the electric division, including the new $30 million bond issue. This graph right here represents the principal and interest, the debt service over the life of the bonds. Today we have $168 million in outstanding bonds for the electric division, and those bonds have an interest cost of approximately $73 million. And that results in a weighted interest cost or rate of about 4.11% for the electric division. And with the new bond issue, the electric division is about 38% debt funded. And just to give you a barometer comparison to other large electric utilities in the TVA service territory, we're slightly below the median or average for those utilities at 38%. For the gas division, we sold 12 million bonds on November 16th. We actually had two bids for the gas bonds that day. The low-cost bid was from Robert W. Baird and Company at 3.67%. Like electric, these were also sold as Build America bonds. You'll note that that rate is about 20 basis points higher than the electric bonds, and that is simply due to the fact that the maturities are a little bit longer, 2 years longer than electric, and they actually start about 5 or 6 years later than the electric bonds. And the reason for that was basically to fill in some gaps on the debt profile for the gas division. And those bonds were also received strong credit ratings from Moody's and S&P. And for gas,